Scrapwood challenge, Scrapwood challenge. It's scrap, it's firewood, but some of the wood is good.
One of the best ways of using scraps is carving a spoon. It's a great project which you should definitely have a crack at if you've never done it before. You'll learn quite a bit, like grain direction and that sort of thing. I've never done a video on it before. I've carved many spoons, so I'm going to make a video on it today. If you are camping or away from your workshop, then these are the only tools that you'd need to carve a spoon. You just need a small axe, a knife. Actually, you only need one knife, and then you need something to carve the bowl. So a spoon carving knife, or if you haven't got one of those, then you could use a gouge instead. There's many ways to carve a spoon. This isn't the only way, but it's the way I do it when I'm in the workshop. If you're going to make quite a few spoons, then it's a good idea to make templates. I'm not too concerned if I don't get that shape 100% right, because I'll be able to refine it when I'm carving it. And a carved spoon isn't supposed to be perfect anyway. So now I'm going to mark the sides. I think I'll have this as my top. I cut the top off, but I'm leaving the bottom, and that's so it's easier to clamp down to the workbench while carving out the bowl, which is the next job. So now I'll just mark around where I want the bowl to go. You can mark it out as precise as you want, but this is how I go about it. I just sketch it in and I go with it. If you haven't got a gouge or a spoon knife, it's surprising how you can manage with the tools you may already have. You could carve the bowl out with a normal chisel, but just keep away from the sides, and then you could use something like this cheap flat disc, put it in your drill, and you'll be able to refine the shape with that. And I've done that before years ago, and it does work. I also made this scraper years ago, and it works quite well for scraping out a shallow bowl. It's just an old plain iron. I've rounded it off, and with a burnisher I put a burr on it. I've just dug this rusty old spoon carving knife. I made it years ago from an old pair of tin snips. It's not the best, but I did carve quite a few spoons with it, so that's another option. You could make your own. Now it's a case of using your knife and shaping the back just to follow that same shape of the bowl there, and then we'll just keep checking that we're not going to go through the bowl. So this bit takes a while, and it's just chipping away at it. By the way, keep watching the video because there may be something exciting at the end. You need to think about which direction you're carving in. So I'm carving from the top of the bowl and going downhill this way. If I try to go uphill, then the edge of the knife is going to dig in the end grain. And then when we want to do the other side of the bowl down here, we just swap it around and we go downhill again. It makes things a lot easier if your tools are sharp, and mine were getting a little bit dull, so I've just done this to 400 on the other side. Now this is 1000. And that should do it. And then a quick draw across the strop. And that is much better. Keep feeling the spoon and check that you're not going too thin, but on the other hand you don't want a big thick chunky spoon either. And you can feel where the high spots are, and then just there's a high spot there, so just work on that, take that down and get it nice and even. Make sure you have a good grip of it and you know where your fingers are. Don't stick your fingers around like this. I've got them tucked away under the bowl. Go nice and carefully. The end of my knife is by my hand here, but I've done this enough times and I'm confident I know where that is. Don't get me wrong, I do cut myself a little bit every now and again, but I've not done anything serious carving a spoon. So just do what you're comfortable with, take your time and don't rush it until you feel more and more confident. For your first spoon, you may be better to use some fresh green wood, and that will be a lot easier. This is, it's not the hardest wood to carve, it's medium density hardwood, but it is seasoned, it's been kiln dried, so it's not the easiest thing to carve. It's not bad either though, it's okay, but carving wet wood is much easier, and that might be the best way of starting out. If you feel uncomfortable holding it, then you can always put it in a vise. That's the bowl pretty well shaped in. It will need refining, but what I'm going to do with this spoon is I'm going to sand it. You can leave it with the carving marks, and I prefer that, but I find that takes longer. You have to go around and make sure they're all nice and neat, and it's actually quicker to sand. So in this video, because I'm in a rush, I'm going to sand it. So the next thing is now is working on the transition from the handle to the bowl. And this bit's a bit tricky because the grain direction runs in different ways, so you'll find out which way it runs and you'll have to keep adjusting. So just go nice and carefully. I have a nasty habit of making this transition too thin and you end up with a weak spoon, so just be careful of that. There's a bit of a balance there because it's nice having that delicate thin transition there, but on the other hand it's no good if the spoon is not strong enough, so it's just getting it just right. And now we just go along and finish our handle. If you dig into the grain running the opposite way, then just turn it around and start working from the other way until you clear it. And if you've gone too deep, then all you have to do is just change the shape of the spoon. That's getting pretty close now. It just needs a bit of refining here and there and shape the end of the handle over. And one last thing, I decided while I was carving it that I'm going to give it away. I'll do that on my Instagram, so head on over there and check it out.